family, and welcome back to the Mental Health Hour on Love Bay Afrobeat Music and Talk Radio. I'm your host, Felicia Fishoff, a registered psychotherapist and founder of Rooted in Resilience Psychotherapy and Wellness. Tonight's conversation is one that feels deeply important to me because behind so many conversations about motherhood, strength, and resilience, there are also stories of exhaustion, survival, overwhelm, identity shifts, grief, anxiety, and emotional weight that often goes unseen. Tonight, we're talking about carrying more than a baby, the mental health of Black motherhood. And I really want us to sit with that title for a moment because so many Black mothers are carrying far more than people realize. They're carrying expectations, they're carrying pressure, they're carrying generational patterns, they're carrying community responsibilities, they're carrying financial stress, emotional labor, caregiving, relationship dynamics, and sometimes even the weight of having to stay strong no matter what. And often they're doing all of that while trying not to fall apart themselves. Tonight is not about portraying Black motherhood as broken. It's about making space for a full humanity of Black mothers, the softness, the strength, the grief, the joy, the anger, the love, the burnout, the resilience, the survival, all of it. Because the truth is, many women have learned how to care for everyone else while quietly abandoning themselves in the process. And we don't talk enough about what that does to the mind, the body, the nervous system, relationships, identity, and sense of self. So tonight, we're holding space for real talk, a compassionate conversation, and hopefully a healing conversation too. And tonight, I'm joined by our incredible Real Talk panel. Powerful women bringing wisdom, lived experience, professional insight, and heart into our conversation tonight. Charlene Lex, registered psychotherapist, a faith based therapist, and emotional wellness advocate, supporting individuals, couples, and communities through healing, purpose, and relational growth. Natasha Pennycook, registered psychotherapist, leadership strategist, and trauma informed speaker, helping professionals and organizations navigate burnout, workplace stress, and emotional well being. Shanique Victoria Edwards, registered psychotherapist, mental health consultant, and nationally recognized equity speaker whose work centers racial trauma, psychological safety, and culturally grounded healing. Thank you all for being here tonight and for helping us hold this conversation in our community. But before we continue, just a quick reminder that while we are mental health professionals, this show is for educational and community conversation purposes only. It is not a substitute for therapy, diagnosis, or crisis support. If something comes up for you during tonight's conversation, we encourage you to reach out to a licensed mental health professional or local support services in your area. And as we move into tonight's conversation, we want to invite you into this space with us. What has motherhood or witnessing motherhood taught you about mental health? What do you wish more people understood about the emotional realities Black mothers carry? Join the conversation in the comments, send us a message, or call in live at 437 778 3299. Your voice matters here too. So, without further ado, let's get into it, ladies. Hey! So good to see you guys. Hey! Hey! Oh my goodness, it's always so lovely hanging out with you ladies, you know? I was thinking before the
Likewise.
show, man, I'm just looking forward to just hanging out because honestly, you guys are my community and I love you guys so much. And so I'm so glad that we get to do this together.
Hmm. Happy to be here.
Yes. All right. So why don't we jump into our conversation? Carrying more than a baby, the mental health of Black motherhood. So, why do we need to be talking about this tonight?
Whew. That's a
Oh,
whole
girl, I felt
question.
that. I
Like you felt
felt.
that, right? It's like
We
that's a
all felt
whole.
that.
We all took an exhale. We're like, oh boy.
Mhm. Yeah, I just think we need to be making more space to have these conversations of what we're
Mhm.
holding as
Yeah.
women, as Black women, as Black mothers, caregivers, and everything in between. It's a lot.
Yeah.
There's a lot of pieces that are there. And,
Mhm.
we see it not only as mental health care professionals, we see it with the clients we work with. We feel it in our own bodies and beings. We were
Mhm.
raised with it, seeing it in our, mothers, grandmothers, aunts. Um, yeah, it's just one of those things where it is carrying more than a baby.
Yeah.
There's just a plethora of stuff there. So yeah, I'm glad that we are gathering as, five Black women talking about this and having this conversation, because it's not only that we're sharing and having this conversation with everyone listening, but also talking about the importance of holding space with one another for conversations like
Mhm.
this. So yeah,
Mhm.
thanks for bringing us together.
Absolutely. So well
So
said.
I think that sigh said it all for me, right? Because we're all holding it. We're all holding the stress, the overwhelm, the pressures of living this out. This is not just a topic that's removed from us, right? We're not armchair psychologists coming in and like weighing in from a distance. We're actually
Mhm.
who are part of communities who either are experiencing it or we're watching other people close to us experience what it feels like and looks like to be Black mothers.
Mhm. Mhm.
I think I would add to that the idea around motherhood is not necessarily just isolated to being the one who birthed the child. But
Mhm.
within this idea of motherhood is very much more expansive than that, right? You may play a
Mhm.
mother role in so many different capacities. And you never
Mhm.
the child, right? You may have had to go help raise children for many, many years before you even had your own. So this
Mhm.
idea around motherhood and the impact that it has on our community, oftentimes starts a lot younger in our kind of developmental stages than we before we even become, mothers of our own.
Mhm.
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
These conversations are really important because, as you all have said, Black women are carrying a lot. Whether or not you birth a child, we are carrying a lot. And, we live in a day and age where being a Black individual in the society can be fatal, right?
Mhm.
Because you're Black. And so, as Black women, we are given the societal responsibility of being carers. And so we are caring for our children, our nieces and nephews, our godchildren, our partners, right? And there is this excitement to have these caring relationships, and there's this grief, this ancestry grief of what
Mhm.
could, right? There's this worry that something could happen. And so Black women are, we're trying to straddle this the emotional turmoil of appearing calm and still being concerned on the inside. And it's always there.
Mhm.
It's always just under the surface, right?
Mhm.
And it creates a kind of hypervigilance that our other counterparts don't have to worry about. We
Mhm.
carry that. And so it gives them um, a sense of ease in this life that we are not privy to. And so we
Mhm.
have to, as Natasha said, we have to create space to unpack that and talk about that.
Mhm. Absolutely. I'm so glad that you talked about this sense of calm because I feel like as Black women, we're so high functioning. And I just like, even with my own therapist, right? I love to put myself out there. All right, for the whole world to hear. Hallelujah. All right. And sometimes my therapist will look at me. She's like, Felicia, I don't know how to like read you right now because you're so high functioning. It's like, well, I hear what you're saying, but are you like, how do you actually feel about this? And I'm like, girl, if you just give me some chips right now, I will eat one bag of thigh. Hallelujah. Right? I know. Right? And it's true, I do sometimes. The small little bags, okay. One, I like variety, right? But yeah, we hold so much. And I mean, on one hand, I think that we need to because we do carry a lot. And I think based on what you guys are saying, there's so many different layers. So when we talk about carrying more than a baby, you know, many of our cultures are, matriarchal, right? There's a particular role that women carry in our communities. And it's like almost like a rite of passage when you become, a mom, but then there's so many layers to that, and whether you birth children or not, and I absolutely agree, but there is this role that we play, but then there is a weight that comes with that role.
Hmm. And I would even say that that role is put on us, some of us, long before we're ready for that role,
Oh,
right?
100%.
And so
Yes.
for me,
That part.
my eldest is turning 40 this year. Why is my eldest turning 40? Because I was put in that parentified role for my sister,
Hmm.
right? And how many of us have to take care of younger siblings, right?
Mm-hmm.
Mother them, make certain that they're fed, make certain that they're bathed, make certain that their homework is done, and all of those different responsibilities.
Mm-hmm.
Far before we're actually ready to become mothers, we're already mothering.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
I think we need to make space to talk about that because, you know, it's the societal conditions that created that system, right? When because what has happened to multiple families is that parents might be new immigrants to the country. They are being stereotyped. There is lots of racism because, I don't know, their educational credentials might not be recognized, or no one wants to hire them in a job that is gainfully, um, it pays you well. And so many of the parents had to work two, three jobs or work the night shift or not get home until 9 o'clock. And so what happens is that the responsibility gets put on the eldest, right? The latchkey children, warm up the mac and cheese, don't open the door for anyone, turn on the TV after your homework, make sure you get in bed, all those things because of the system that interrupted the relationship with many of us and our parents, right? And so this is not about um, you're parentified because your parents didn't know how to parent.
Mhm.
We were
Yeah.
parentified because um, the system didn't allow our parents, our mothers, to mother us in the way that was necessary. And so it's created this generation of first daughters who were, or the eldest sibling, who were now parenting at 9, 10, 11 years old when they really should have been outside running free.
Yeah.
Yeah, and to piggyback on what you just said there, Roxanne, it's also like the 70s coming into Canada. I can speak to that experience too, because a lot of the women came to Canada and just how the government and the immigration was set up, they couldn't bring their families at
That's
first.
right.
Mhm.
And so it's like they came up here, they were working as maids and
Hmm.
domestic workers at first. A lot of those women ended up graduating and becoming nurses over
Hmm.
time, right? And so you see success stories in that, in
Hmm.
that field. And yet you still have the stories of the kids who were back home. We call them barrel children because
Yes.
their mothers would actually like pack barrels of
Mhm.
food and things like that and send back home. And so this is the discrepancy because when you have systems that break up families, right, in this have generations of these stories where, again, elder children are then having to take care of younger kids.
Yes.
Mhm, mhm,
And I think one of the things that of great significance is
mhm,
tying this back to that the conversation on mental health, right?
mhm,
When you are, having to raise kids at those tender ages, as we have kind of discussed already,
mhm,
you don't have the capacity yet to really kind of contend with all of the parameters of motherhood that you may have to contend with, and things that might be coming up for you emotionally. And so those, emotions and feelings end up becoming pushed down, right? And then when you fast forward to present day, you still might not have time or space or the luxury to be able to process those things. And so the weight and the burden and all the things that might be percolating below the surface just become that much greater. And then, we question, the fatigue or the burnout.
mhm,
When my siblings got a little bit older and they were kind of out on their own, to me, I used to say I felt like an empty nester. I
Mm.
felt like, my kids have grown up and it's time for me to retire. But where I was in terms of my physical age, it was time for me to start my own family.
Mhm.
And
Mm.
that for me kind of was something I had to work through. And I think I'm still a little bit working that through, in this idea of having to quote unquote start over. It's almost like a
Mm.
starting over with a new baby all over again. And it kind of it was a disruption in my mind, if I'm going to be honest.
mhm.
Mhm.
And I love that you bring that up because I don't think we talk about that enough, right? Because, you know, as we take on these parentified roles, I'm saying we. I mean, I'm the baby of my family, so you would have just packed me up and shipped me out, okay? Right? But I do hear about that a lot from some clients as well who have taken on these roles as eldest children, and when it's time for them to start their own families, they're like, I am exhausted and I just want to live my life, right?
Mhm.
And I can imagine that shift, and even that mental block too that can come with that.
Yeah.
Mhm. It's also this space that you're in after you start having your kids. So say that you decide, all right, I'm ready, let's do this, right? You're starting your own family, and yet you're also like dealing with the dichotomy between the parent that you were with your siblings and the
Mm.
are now, right?
Mhm.
And so it's just interesting to just kind of like process through what that looks like, how you're different, how you've grown, the things that you're like, ooh, if I could go back, I would do that one over again.
Mhm.
There's so much there to unpack and process as you're going through it.
Mhm.
That's good. That's good. Another thing that I was thinking of just in terms of unpacking is, you know, a lot of us are from different countries, outside of where we are now in Canada. And there's a lot of expectation of carrying on tradition, right?
Mhm.
And so you become the tradition keepers.
Mm.
And heaven forbid, if there are community entities around you, heaven forbid you should, order pizza on a Sunday instead of making this huge giant Sunday dinner traditional meal, right? And so there is this juxtaposition of, do I show up like the Caribbean, African, name the country that you're from or the region that you're from? Do I show up in that way, or do I show up as a
Yeah.
parent in 2026 and just do things my way, right?
Mhm.
So there are a lot of different pieces at play when it comes to motherhood. There is, the career piece. Do I go out and climb the corporate ladder, become the entrepreneur baddie? Where do you blend that with doing all the things that society says you're supposed to do, right? Putting your children to
Mhm.
bed and reading them a bedtime story and saying prayers with them at nighttime. Do you still show up for the field trip? There's a lot of things at play here? You know, what does it say? I remember when my kids were in elementary school, and I didn't realize it at the time, but you know, given myself a year or two to look back, I realized that I showed up at school on purpose. My hand was up for every field trip,
Oh
uh,
yeah.
every volunteer opportunity, for every parent council. And it wasn't because I just wanted to be involved with the school. It was because they're going to know that these two children
Mhm.
have someone who is behind them
Mm,
24/7, and they better not mess with my children because everyone in this building
exactly.
is going to know who Mrs. Francis is, right? And I wish I could say that that was from a place of, I just want to volunteer, but it was a place of my children need protection and I need
Yeah.
to help for them, right? And I I knew in the moment that I was showing up in this way for my
Mm.
children, but I didn't stop to think that other parents don't have to do that,
Yeah.
right? Other
Mhm.
Yeah.
parents, I shouldn't have to make the extra effort just for the school to know that these children have parents and they're protected, and we shouldn't try to push them around. It was like I was showing up as his bodyguard for my children in
Yes.
school. And again, this is something that other parents don't have to. They just send their children to school and that's it.
Mhm.
Right?
Mhm.
Yeah. The exhaustion piece that you're speaking of, the emotional and the social exhaustion,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mhm.
To show up, it's not only show up, it's also part of a strategy to make
Yes.
sure that our children are safe
Yes.
so that they can be able to slow down when they are ready to know that,
Mhm.
and to know that someone's got them, that they don't have to carry that load that
Yes.
we've carried, right? It's to make sure that, okay, this is what it looks like. You don't have to
Mhm.
navigate those systems on your own,
Mhm.
especially in North America as being a racialized and Black individual, right?
Mhm.
And what that means,
Mhm.
and how hard that can be, and what that looks like, especially in a school system. And we know with, especially within the school systems, that school to prison pipeline is very real, especially for our Black
Yes.
children, especially for our
Mhm.
Black boys. And those, I know, Roxanne, you'd have boys as well, right? It's like making sure that the
Mhm.
strategy that I'm doing, although it is exhausting emotionally and I'm physically and I'm socially exhausted, I need to do this to make sure that they can be okay. And
Mhm.
that mirrors a lot of the pieces that a lot of us grew up in, right? Where, parents immigrating and coming, or you yourselves immigrating, coming here to make sure that the next generation is okay. And I think
Mhm.
that's the piece, right? That's the mental load that Black mothers that we've been carrying. It's not about self, not about protecting self, but to protect the next generations that are going to be there, to be standing on our shoulders. And I think parts of it too is, how do we then, as we're parenting and caring for the next generation, how do we then reparent self? And
Mm.
that's such a challenge to do while we're navigating both spaces and both planes, because then a lot of times we're then caregivers to parents and grandparents. So we're in this position where we have, maybe caring for grandparents and parents, reparenting self, then make sure the next generation is safe. It is. It's hard and it's exhausting, but we're carrying.
Mhm.
It's really interesting. I think what's being pulled out here is this idea that we have to be hyper visible for our kids, but we're also invisible in terms of the load that we're carrying. And so,
Absolutely.
this
Yes.
idea that
Yeah.
consistently we're having to somehow survive and develop some form of adaptation to holding these dual things that oftentimes are unseen, and creating space, for ourselves somehow in this process to be seen. and not just be, adapting every time to different situations, but actually getting to a place where we can actually live and thrive. And I think that's why, this idea around potentially having to start over when you think about, starting your own family sometimes can actually be burdensome, if I'm being honest.
Yeah.
Not just sometimes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I feel like it's like a damned if you do, damned if you don't. Because when we're too visible, it's an issue.
Mm.
And then when we're not visible because we're trying to put food on the table and we're working, it's another issue. It's like, oh, you're not there enough. And it's like, no matter where we sit, the system finds an issue with us. And then it's like, we don't know what to do with that sometimes. And that in itself can be a load that we carry.
100%. I think it's the core of racism, right? Just never enough. No matter what form you take, you are never enough. You're never good enough.
Yes,
You're never doing enough. You're never mom enough. You're just never enough, right?
yes.
But that level of scrutiny is not
Mm,
placed on white women, whether they're climbing the corporate ladder or they're trad wives, baking bread barefoot in the kitchen. Like that level of scrutiny is not there. There's this sense of whatever you choose, it's fine. But for Black women, you have to be all the things all the time. That's why we're exhausted.
That's why we're exhausted.
mhm,
Yeah.
mhm. I mean, as therapists, how many times have you heard our clients come in and be just like, I'm tired. I am so tired. I mean, I said it with my own therapist. I love you, therapist. Big up yourself. Where I was like, I'm just tired. I'm just exhausted to my core. And all of these things that we're talking about, plus some, is why,
Mhm.
It's because
Mhm.
we're carrying again this invisible load that we just we just feel like we must carry because we really do, you know? It's hard
Mhm.
to put it down because the system doesn't allow us to put it down.
Yes.
Mhm.
Can I add too, just that vicarious exhaustion? As you were talking there, it was reminding me of, a situation in supervision where I was talking about a Black client specifically and working
Mm,
through their experience. And I remember saying, that I was tired. And I love my supervisor, but she's a white woman, right? And I think she misunderstood what I meant when I said that I was feeling tired. And she had asked me if I needed to put more boundaries in, for example, with this client. And I was like, it's not that I'm tired of working with this client. I'm tired of having these same conversations with my
Mm.
I'm tired of hearing that, my sisters here are tired because of things that they have to carry that other women, white women, don't have to carry. And that exhaustion just it lands on me sometimes in a certain
Yeah.
way that, checking out from that. And I mean, you don't need to be a therapist to have that vicarious exhaustion.
Yeah.
It's hearing it from your friends and, hearing it from your circle that, it's the same thing over and over and over. And yet still, on one end of the spectrum, we do want to talk about all the progress that was made. But why are we having the same conversations that our mom and our grandmothers had when they came here? Like, have we really made
Yes.
that much progress, really and truly?
yeah.
It's what
Mhm.
This fallacy that we've made this quote unquote progress, I don't think it lends itself to creating space
mm-mm.
to hold these stories.
And
Mhm.
as you're talking, what's coming up for me, I have to remind myself not to interrupt you. It's not that we have a lack of progress, is that the system has not changed,
The
Yes.
system hasn't changed. No.
right? And we're trying to attain to improve in this system that is intent on keeping us in a particular
Mhm,
place,
mhm.
right?
Mhm.
And so it becomes exhausting.
Yes.
Mm,
Yes. And
mhm,
it becomes exhausting because we've made progress. We've made progress and we're moving forward, but that
mhm.
systems, policies, those procedures, all of those things within the system that upholds the system, they're not moving
Yeah.
because the system also is created that way to stay how the system is. So
Yeah.
while
Mhm.
we're moving
Mm,
and we're progressing, it does become exhausting because it's like, we're moving forward. How come it's not meeting us where we're at?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, it's not designed that way.
And that's exactly what I meant. Sorry if it was misinterpreted, but that's
No,
exactly what I
no.
meant in terms of
Yeah.
the idea that we've kind of made progress is not on us. It's others
Right,
who are
right,
looking at it and
exactly.
wondering, why do we still have the same conversation? Why do we still have to create space for this? Why? It's because we haven't moved. Like it's
Yes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I love the term that you use, the vicarious exhaustion. That is like that
Mm.
right there, that is it, right? And we I mean, all of us know about that secondary trauma, but it's that vicarious exhaustion where it's like, we're holding them, and especially as clinicians, as therapists, we're holding it all the time. And we
Yeah.
all know that we have women, Black women, who specifically seek us out because we
Mhm.
will see them and we will
We
understand.
understand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We understand, and we're able to be there and be in that gap with them, while at the same time it's like I get it and I understand so much because I'm feeling it too.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting, even as we talk about that system and the idea that it's like it's lose lose, right? Like you're damned if you do, damned if you don't, right?
Mhm.
A system that tells us that we're not enough
Mhm.
at the same time as telling us that we're way too much,
Too much.
right?
That's
Like
it.
this is the thing,
Mhm.
you cannot win with this, right?
Mhm.
And so you have women who are doing so much to try to like better themselves, better their families, better their communities, and then feeling burnt out in the process.
Mhm.
Right? We talk about being high functioning, but a lot of us are exhausted, right?
Yes.
Like exhausted, capital exhausted, underline exhausted. We're done. You know what I mean?
Tired. We're
Tired,
tired.
right? Right? And it's because it's not just in my home that I have to do it. It's not just with my clients that I have to do it. Like
Mm.
even as you were saying before, Roxanne, about elementary school, I was that mom, right? I intentionally chose to not be on council because I just didn't have the energy for it. But everything else, I was showing up and I was doing pizza lunch. I know all the kids in the class, right?
Mm-hmm.
All the trips. And I remember specifically, one day, the bus driver, it's a new bus driver, and he's sketchy. And he had this little girl, 5 years old, right? This little Black girl, and he would not let her off the bus. Her grandma was there, but he chose to not let her off the bus, right? And so I could have taken my kids who are already off the bus and gone. But this is part of being a part of a community and a
Community
village,
care.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm looking and I'm seeing this and I'm like, I literally walk up to the bus and I put my foot on the bus. I say, they're not going anywhere, right?
Mhm.
She's coming off the bus. He's arguing. He's not letting her off the bus. You know, the first thing I do, I call the school because they know
Mm-hmm.
me, right? The principal gets on the phone. Oh, hi, Mrs. Lex. Yes, of course. We'll figure it out right away. And she gets on the phone with the bus company. And does he not have to let the little girl off the bus?
Mm-hmm.
But if I wasn't there and I
Right.
hadn't done all of that work for years to show up at the school in that, I
Mm.
wouldn't be able to make that phone call.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, this is what it means. Like when you're pulled in all of these different directions, even if it's not someone who's like your family or your family friend, you still, because it's part of your village, have to
Mm-hmm.
step up in those moments. And this is what makes it exhausting over time.
Well, the other thing too, as
Mm.
you're talking, I'm thinking to myself that we have to show up on multiple occasions in these many ways in order to build credibility and social currency with the
Mm,
school
mm.
because of how we look, right?
Yep,
Other
yep.
families, they walk in with that already, first day one, right? Um, and it just goes to show how much we have to put into the system just to be able to extract something out of it, right?
Mm.
And we go back to the exhaustion.
Yeah.
You're tuned in to the Mental Health Hour on Love Bay Afrobeat Music and Talk Radio, where real conversations meet real healing. If tonight's conversation is resonating with you, share this stream with someone who may need this conversation. Drop your reflections in the comments or give us a call live at 437-778-3299. Download the Love Bay app on Apple or Google Play and visit lovebayradio.live to stay connected and support the platform. Guess what? Because your voice matters, your story matters, and this space is for you. I also wanted to share an announcement that we are having Love Bay Radio's fourth annual Voices of the Millennials Youth event. Join us for an inspiring evening of networking, food, entertainment, and meaningful connections as we come together to celebrate, support, and empower our youth. There's also scholarships. I don't know if you guys know, but Love Bay is such a giving, not for profit organization. And they give scholarships every single summer. So they are prioritizing different areas: medical sciences, law, justice and community leadership, skilled trades and industry development, hospitality, tourism and service excellence, media, communications and public relations, STEM, business, and finance. Love Bay Radio's annual scholarship program is open to students enrolled in full-time and undergraduate or graduate programs at a Canadian college or university. Applicants must demonstrate academic excellence, financial need, and community involvement. They are going to be giving each recipient will receive $1,000. Come on, remember this lovely host. I'm kidding, just kidding. Yeah. The deadline is June 30th. Come on, write that down. The deadline is June 30th, okay? And selected students may also have access to exclusive internship opportunities through Love Bay Afrobeat Music and Talk Radio. So what is the requirements? Applicants are required to submit a short essay, maximum 500 words, outlining their academic goals, their career aspirations, their community involvement, and how the scholarship will support their future success. So, where do you send in your application? You email it at Love Bay Events, not LOVE, but LUV. BAYEVENTS 2026 at gmail.com. That's Love Bay Events 2026 at gmail.com, or you can give them a call at 437-778-3299. And guess what? If you missed that whole announcement, it's on YouTube. So just rewind and everything I
Can
said
come again.
and come again, because guess what? We are jumping right back into our conversation tonight. All right. Okay. I did it, guys. Let's go. You know, as you guys were talking earlier, and it's been weighing on my heart because, you know, as a mom of two young Black boys, sometimes I wonder, when is the right time to have these conversations with them? Because I feel like that is also a part of the weight that we carry, because we know the system, and we plus then there's obviously there's other things that are happening right now, especially in the GTA, with a lot of our Black boys going missing for trafficking. There's just so much that is happening, there's so much that is going on, and it's just scary. Even this week, guys, there's a coyote in my community bit this boy's head, another on a coyote watch. I'm like, if I don't have enough to worry about, now I have to worry about a coyote biting up my children. Come on. Real thing. If you're from Markham, watch out. Watch your kids, because there's a coyote trying to bite up people's children. But so when is a good time to have these conversations with our kids? Because I think for me, I struggle with, on one hand, I want them to just live their life and I want them to enjoy their youth. But then there's another part of me that I'm like, I don't want them to go in unaware and be caught and be like, why didn't you tell me? So when is the right time, and how do we have these conversations with our kids?
Yeah. We need to be having these age appropriate conversations from like the get-go. right? Like
Mhm.
teaching our children about who they are, their identity. And it's a hard conversation. It's a really hard conversation. I mean, because I talk about anti Black racism all the time, my child will talk about racism and discrimination and prejudice, but it hasn't been just, throw everything at him. It's been little bits at a time from, unfortunately, I guess fortunate and unfortunate, our kids have access to the internet. So they're going to be seeing those
Uh,
pieces.
it's
And
true.
what I mean, like I remember my son being like 2 or 3 and watching marble races on YouTube and then saying things like the black one's bad and the black one's always losing. And then we had to have a conversation of what anti-black racism was and how that's even showing up
Mhm.
in cartoons and things like that, and why that is, and what people think about people who have darker skin, and the colorism and the shadeism and all of that. So we had to start having those conversations of why these crayons are making fun of this crayon, right? So it's like realizing
Mhm.
that even if we're not actively having these conversations, our children are being exposed.
Yes.
They're being exposed. So we need to really start having those conversations from a young age, but in age appropriate ways, because they're showing up. Especially like YouTube, not regulated. Anything is there. Any and everything is there.
Mhm. Mhm. 100%.
Um, I think, well, I can say about, my own experience. My husband and I decided when our kids were younger that we were going to allow them to live free as kids without
Mm.
a lot of this as backdrop to their lives. What we were intentional about was affirming who they were,
Mhm.
affirming that their skin was beautiful, affirming
Mhm.
that they're from a rich tradition of people who love them, people who are celebrated for whatever path of life that they chose, not just because you are a physicist or a doctor or. Um,
Mhm.
and because we were intentional about ongoing communication, asking questions, noticing things, then as they became a little bit older and a little bit more aware, we would notice things together. We would notice things in the news. We would notice things in the museum. We would
Mhm.
notice things. I was just having a conversation with my youngest the other day, and he was like, we were remarking together that England seems to be the only country without an Independence Day. And I'm like, huh, why do you think that is? Right? So we had to have a conversation about colonization and what that was all about. But
Mm.
Natasha's point about being age appropriate, right? It was in bits and pieces when they were
Yes.
since they've been little, and now as
Yeah.
they've gotten older, we've been able to have more robust conversations. And of course, the
Mhm.
conversations I'm having with my 14-year-old are different from the conversations that I'm having with the 11-year-old, right?
Yeah.
And under talking about things like policing and you know the whole phenomenon or the atrocity of missing children in Ontario. We talk about that. We talk about what's happening in the indigenous communities, right?
Mhm.
It's However, we were really intent about trying to make sure that our children were carefree in their childhood
Mhm.
so that they didn't have to worry about being Black in grade 2. You
Yeah.
know, we what during the pandemic they both decided to grow afros, so they have this huge shock of hair. So we talk about how their hair is magic and it can do anything, right?
Mm.
And we eventually had this discussion about when I go to school, do I let people just randomly touch my hair? And why is that, mommy? That doesn't seem like a bad thing. So we
Mm.
start to have these conversations. As they've gotten older, they have a better understanding of what society is like now, but we were so
Mm.
careful that we didn't want them worrying about that at 5, at 6, and we just wanted them to be carefree. Thankfully, they were in many spaces where they were allowed to do that, and they weren't, from my knowledge, exposed to a lot of discrimination, but it is there. And
Mhm.
so we were also on the alert, right? As parents, as a mom. Um, but yeah, it also, there's also that underlying piece of, should I have this discussion? When should I have this discussion? They need to be aware. Society can be mean. Society's meaner to Black children. There's always that worry, that hypervigilance as a Black mom.
Mhm. I really like that idea of kind of witnessing with. And, I personally don't have any children, but, I consider my niece to be my child, to be um, and one of the things sometimes when I'm speaking even to friends who have kids is, allow the kid to bring it up. There's going to be things that they will share with you, and I think the biggest piece is just to be honest with them. Don't try to downplay it. Don't try to kind of brush it under the rug. That was something that I brought certain things home. My mom, don't bother your mind with those things, right? But there, it's coming up because it is bothering my mind, right? And I may not even fully, understand at whatever age that I am at, the impact of it. But it helps to kind of bring forth and the fact that we can talk about anything that kind of comes up. And I think it also dismantles silence, which is something that perpetuates in our community. So I wouldn't say that I'm going to go up there and be like, and sit my niece down and be like, these are the things you're going to experience when you get into kindergarten and so on and so forth. But when things do come up, much like what Roxanne said, I do think it's about having those honest conversations and not kind of sugarcoating it from there. And if I don't know, let's find out together. That's something that I should know too. And finding kind of those age appropriate ways to bring forth the conversation. That's kind of how I approach it.
Yeah, so just to piggyback on what everybody actually said, I took it really seriously, this idea of talking on a daily basis with my kids, right? So it wasn't just about issues around race, it was everything, right? And again, age appropriately, but really talking about the world around them, what they were seeing, what they were hearing, right? And holding space and witnessing their experience through their eyes, right? I remember my son in kindergarten talking about the teacher being frustrated, right? And the little boy she was frustrated at, right, looks like mommy. And so really asking him questions, like we're literally walking to school. He's holding my hand with his little hand and he's trying to work through, she's so nice to me, but she was frustrated with, and he said the boy's name. And I said to him, how did that make you feel? When your teacher was frustrated at this little boy, how did it make you feel? Right? And really helping him to unpack it. And I think the key thing that I want to say here is for moms, you don't have to have the answers. If you just have communication open from the time they're little, when they get older, they're going to want to talk to you.
That's it.
Even today, my kids are 17 and 15, and every day after school, the first thing they do is grab a snack and they want to sit with mommy and tell me about their day. Now, there's times that I'm just kind of like looking at the time, going, I ain't got all that time, y'all. Like, seriously, what is going on? But yet, I just hold space. This is the girl. She loves chat, right? I hold space. I listen. I ask curious questions, right?
Yes.
I ask them how did they experience whatever it is that they're telling me about, whether it's a test, whether it's something that they notice interpersonally with somebody else, right? Whether it's something that they noticed with a teacher. What was their like internal dialogue about that? What thoughts came up for them about that, right? What feelings kind of came up with them for them about that? And I think if parents, if as parents, that's what we do. We just sit with our kids, right? No agenda, no, gotta hit these 3 points, right? Hold space for their experience,
Yeah.
age by age. That's enough, right? It's parenting, right? That's what we do. Good enough parenting.
So I know that we talked a lot about what we've been carrying, and I'm sure that many of our listeners across the globe are resonating with exactly the experience. It is our experience. So for those that are feeling like, yep, I am tired, what can we tell, our sisters across the globe about what it looks like to begin to unpack some of that fatigue, especially because, as we mentioned today, it is heavy.
I think the first thing that comes to my mind is the village, right? Like I mentioned, I'm not a mom, but I, classify all the kids that are a part of my sphere of influence connected to, my close friends and things like that. They're my village children. Right. And, I will show up for my village children. I will actually, be transparent and honest. I've been in a season right now where I've really just been focusing on myself. But if one of those village kids has something coming up, I'm there. Auntie's there. I'm there. I'm showing up if they need something. And so, you know, I may not necessarily be able to take the weight of their parents' exhaustion, but I can be a part of the extension of the village so they don't have
Mhm,
to carry it alone. So that's kind of what would be my initial perspective.
mhm, mhm,
I think to add to that, having the village for us as Black women, right? Like, yes, it takes a village to raise a child, but it also takes a village to make sure that we are well and that we are part of and that we are seen, that we're heard. And so the
mhm,
exhaustion doesn't feel like it's an independent, alone act. Being able to have these conversations, these are what also what resonates with a lot of people. I know a lot of people when they're out there seeking the support, it always starts with, I'm thinking I'm the only one. I'm thinking I'm isolated. I'm thinking there's no one else that's going through it. So just know that there's a lot of people going through it. And, while it may feel like we're continuously fighting that system, we're also allowed to stop and step out of the system and create a space that feels warm and welcoming and loving so we can be seen and heard and appreciated.
mhm, mhm, mhm,
I think we need to give ourselves time to lean back a little bit. You know, um, a lot of it takes self awareness. So recognizing when we are overperforming or over mothering, right? And leaning into your community, recognizing that you're not doing this alone, and allowing yourself space and time to step back when you need to step back, right? My kids are a little bit older, but I also know now that I can't be at everything. Some things I'm going to be able to go to, and some things I'm not going to be able to go to. But also recognizing that because of aunties like Shanique, there are other parents in the village who can step in, right?
mhm,
Uh, there are other moms that I can talk to about the frustration of this motherhood challenge and know that I'm being supported, right? I can access support from my emotional support from my sister. I can talk to my therapist and giving myself the grace to understand that my child's success in this life is not only dependent on me,
Yeah.
right? I do what I can. Amen to good enough parenting. I do what I can, and
Love it. Yeah.
the rest is on them. The rest
Yeah.
is the rest.
mhm, mhm,
Yeah.
I love that.
Mhm, mhm. And I think that what I really want to share is the importance of the impact of our health on our mental health, right? From all the way to you having a baby
mhm,
and all the times that, Black women have to advocate for for themselves within the hospital. They don't get the luxury of just showing up and, putting on their makeup and looking cute after like giving birth and all of that stuff like the
Is that a
influencers.
real thing?
Girl, girl,
Some
right?
people, yes.
People. I just didn't even bother. I'm like, just get me a sandwich, okay? Um, but it's
Yeah.
from that, I'm thinking even like Serena Williams and how she had to advocate for herself, right? Like in the hospital. And fortunately, she had a partner who could also advocate for her too, right? But from that, on the one hand, all the way to perimenopause and menopause, and Black women having to deal with things like fibroids and our estrogen levels getting low, and the exhaustion is not just mental. The exhaustion
Mhm.
at that point is also physical.
Mhm.
And so
Mhm.
to the listeners to then really pay attention to your health and its impact on your mental health, right? And I know that we have listeners across the globe, and sometimes you can't tap in to a village where you are in the world because there's not people who look like you. And that's okay too. This is why we have shows like this. This is why you can tap in to different people online that you resonate with, because they can become your village when you're actually feeling far away from home, wherever home is.
Yeah.
And so those are the two things that I really wanted to just hold out for the listeners.
Mhm.
Mhm. And I think I would just add, I want to remind listeners out there that you are enough and your love is enough. I know that, sometimes when we're carrying so much, we're trying to eat the whole pie all in one sitting, and it just is overwhelming. But, your best is enough. And I think that we could be so hard on ourselves. We could be our own worst critic. But really, just take everything one at a time. And I agree with what my sisters are saying. Like, listen to your body, take care of yourself, find your village, find your people. You don't have to carry it all by yourself. Find that trusted one or two people, that you can share, what you're experiencing. Um, we mentioned the fact that the systems have been the same, it's not changing, but you're doing your best to navigate that, and your best is enough,
Mhm.
you know, your effort is enough, and you're doing your best to protect your family, you're doing your best to protect your community. That is enough.
Mhm. Yeah.
Mhm. All right, well, you guys want to drop one last piece of dumpling and gem on the community before we wrap up for tonight?
I would love to hear Roxanne say her point again. I don't want to botch it because it's coming back different in my mind than I think that you said it in terms of amen to what was it?
Just enough parenting. I think Charlene was one who said it first. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Yeah, but I think that is a nugget for the night. Amen to
Yeah.
just enough parenting. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a concept from attachment theory that
Mhm.
all you need is good enough parenting for you
Mhm.
to turn out okay.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Mm,
One of the things that I have been thinking about quite a bit lately is the social determinants of health.
mm,
And I know we all understand it, but for those people who are listening who have never heard the term before, it's this idea that there are socioeconomic, sociopolitical, social factors that
mm,
impact your wellness, your physical wellness, your mental wellness. And so often we talk about mental health these days as though it's something, just do this strategy or go see your therapist and you will be well. But there are so many different factors. And the five of us as we sit here, I don't know everyone's circumstance in detail, but I know enough to know that we are therapists who live in a certain socioeconomic um, category, so to speak,
mhm,
right? But there are people who are unsure of where the next meal is going to come from. There
mhm,
are people who are worried about their physical safety.
mm,
There are children who don't want to go home from school when school is over, right? And
mhm,
when you are a mom, when you are a Black mom, you are already dealing with the social factor of racism,
mhm,
right?
mhm,
Overt and systemic. sorry, individual and systemic, overt and covert. Um, but then we think about the other social factors that are created by racism, right?
Yeah.
Joblessness, um, underemployment, substandard education based on where you live sometimes. All of these factors impact how we show up for our children.
Mhm.
And that impacts
Absolutely.
your own those things impact your own mental health. They impact the trauma that you've experienced as a result of parents who had to deal with racism. That impacts how you show up for your children. And so one a big part of it is about awareness, recognizing that there are these social factors. And two,
Mhm.
understanding that all of this is not on you.
Mhm.
All of this is not on you, but society has a way of pinning everything down to motherhood, right? If
Mhm.
your child doesn't turn out fine, it's the mother. If your child turned out great, it's the mother. When
Mhm.
the athletes win their MVP, it's all about thanks to mom, right? Or shout out
Mhm.
mom if you're on the football field. All the things they pin it down to the mother when there are so many other determining factors. So I just want
Mm.
particularly Black women to give themselves some grace. It does not
Yes.
go down to you.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Well said. Well said.
Oh, amazing. Any more gems for tonight, ladies?
I would say that rest
Hmm.
Mm.
is important, right? At the end of the day, you're no good to anyone else if you are burnt out and you have nothing left to like pour out of your bucket,
Mhm.
right? And if you need somebody to say it to you, then fine, I'll say it to you tonight. Find a way to get some rest.
Mm.
Don't think about it like, oh, I'm saving up for this vacation if you can afford it, please, because that's not going to do nothing, right?
Mhm.
On a
Mhm.
daily basis, what can you do today to get a
Mhm.
little bit of rest? Maybe it's walking outside when the weather feels a little bit nicer.
Yeah.
Maybe sitting in your car for an extra 10 minutes and putting on some Tony Braxton and singing at the top of your lungs, right? Maybe it's going to the gym. Maybe it's going for a run. I'm not a runner personally, used to be, but not anymore, right? Maybe it's like just getting like a little treat at lunchtime, right? Getting yourself a slushie or something at lunchtime, right?
Mm.
Find a way to just do something for you to just take a little bit of a break in the middle of your day and rest.
Mm.
And I would say, tying what everyone has shared, advocating for yourself to have all of that, to have
Mm.
Yeah.
time to rest, to have time to be seen, to have
Mhm.
time to build community. Because I think as Black women, we're advocating for everyone else. We're making sure everyone else is seen and heard and taken
Mhm.
care of. So make sure that you are in line with the everybody.
Mhm.
With the
Mhm.
everybody. I tell my clients all the time, you're taking care of mother, father, sister, brother, niece, nephew, husband, partner, son, daughter, but you're all the way back there. Let's
Mhm.
pull yourself in line with everyone at
Yes.
least, and make sure you are also a person that gets to have you as well to take care of, right? Make sure
Mhm.
that you're advocating for yourself as well.
Yeah.
Mhm. Well, there we have it, Love Bay family. As we close tonight's conversation, I want to leave you with this. Black motherhood is not meant to be carried in isolation. Behind the strength so many people admire are real human beings, women navigating love, exhaustion, pressure,
Mhm.
sacrifice, joy, grief, survival, and softness all at once. And every mother deserves spaces where she can be held too. Thank you so much to our incredible panel. Charlene, Natasha, Roxanne, and Shanique for your honesty, your wisdom, your love, your heart, and your vulnerability. And thank you to our lovely family for listening, engaging, and growing with us. Next week on the Mental Health Hour, it's She Speaks, where I'll be joined by entrepreneur, visionary, and founder Teresa Lee Brown for a powerful conversation titled From Teen Mom to CEO Rewriting the Narrative.
Nice.
Teresa is the founder of Lee Event Group, the visionary behind the We Rise experience, and the creator of Profession L House, a membership based social business club designed to support entrepreneurs and creatives in building sustainable success and meaningful community. In this honest and inspiring conversation, we'll explore Teresa's journey from teen motherhood to becoming a respected leader and entrepreneur while unpacking the emotional realities of building, healing, and leading as women. Together, we'll talk about resilience, identity, ambition, softness, reinvention, and the tension many women feel between being nurturing and being seen as strong enough to lead. This is a conversation about rewriting inherited narratives, healing while building, and refusing to let your beginning determine your future. You don't want to miss it. Until then, take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and remember your healing matters, your voice matters, and you don't have to do it alone. Good night, Love Bay family.